Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Boston Balling. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut. I hope everyone's having a great start to the week. It's Tuesday, so we're one day closer to the weekend is how I kind of look at it. So I hope everyone's doing well. A special shout out I need to give today because I found out the other day that my show is a really popular podcast in Argentina, supposedly. So I have to give a shout out to all the people that are listening from there because that's a pretty cool to me. So I appreciate all of you supporting my show from over there and the downloads and just constantly coming back week after week because wouldn't be able to do it without any of you. So a special shout out to you guys and obviously to, all of my loyal listeners every week. I know I say it a lot, but I really, really appreciate everybody supporting the show. So just kind of had to start off with that, but I'm really excited for this episode. We have a lot of good content that we're going to bring you tonight. I have a special guest with me here. He's a good friend of mine. We used to work together at ESPN. Fun fact. So that's that was really fun. He knows a lot about sports. Big Atlanta sports guy, as you can see with his Braves hat, which I'm going to touch on in just 1 second. But Andrew, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, and congrats on all the success with the podcast and all the Argentinians listening. That's awesome.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. I was kind of surprised myself. I was like, wow, it's a top 15 podcast in Argentina. How do these people even come across the show? And what makes them like it so much? But I really, really appreciate their support. So kind of had to give them a shout out today. But first of all, before we kind of get into all this, I do need to say congratulations to you on your Braves winning the World Series. I think that's awesome. I know how big of an Atlanta fan you are, so I'm super happy for you.
Yeah, I was born in '96, and the Braves last won the World Series in '95. So this was the first the championship of any kind for an Atlanta sport I've experienced. So it was an improbable run, being under 500 for most of the year, and then making a ton of trade deadline acquisitions, and we went on a crazy run, and I couldn't be happier. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I feel like you guys kind of just caught fire exactly when you needed to. I mean, going into the postseason, as we all know, you could be the best team on paper all season, and then just that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win it all. Baseball is very much who catches the momentum at the end, and the Braves just had that momentum, and they clicked when they need at the exact moment that they needed to, and they came through and they delivered, and they took care of the Astros, which I'm really happy about. Also took care of the Dodgers, which I'm happy about as well. And they just kind of, they had it. They went into the postseason and they just had that spark that they needed to win it all at that point. It's a very, very talented roster. And I think after, what happened last year, I think Braves fans really needed that. So I'm really happy for you.
Yeah, I think most of the country was rooting for us against the Astros, which was pretty cool. But
Sure.
yeah,
Sure.
the bullpen was just like lights out through like the entire playoffs. Like guys like Tyler Matzik and Will Smith and Mentor was really good for most of the playoffs too. And the lineup was just clicking, like you said. And like you said, baseball is a game of who gets hot at the right time. And I kind of had a feeling when towards the end of the year when we started to win a bunch of games in a row and we're clinching the division, I was like, this team might have it. They got the feeling. They got the juice. So I'm really glad they got it done though.
Yeah, I am too. Super happy for you. I was one of those many people in the majority of the country that was rooting for the Braves because I definitely did not want to see the Astros win. So yeah, really happy for you. Really happy for the city of Atlanta. I think that's an awesome accomplishment. I think you guys, that celebration. I can't even imagine what that was like. At the parade and everything. Like I saw some videos from the parade and it looks pretty wild.
Yeah, it was wild. I was unable to go, unfortunately, but I was watching on TV the whole time, and it looked pretty wild. It looked like the boys were having a big time. So,
I mean, they deserved it. They just brought home a championship, so they deserve to have all that fun.
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I'm super happy for you. I think that's awesome. I think they're a talented team, and they'll definitely be tough to beat again next year. So that'll be exciting to kind of see what they do in the off season to capitalize after this championship that they just won. So that's pretty exciting. I mean, we were just talking about off air before we started the show, the whole Freddie Freeman thing, if they're going to re-sign him or not, and hopefully they do because obviously I don't really see him being anywhere else. I don't think you do either, and that's kind of where he's meant to be. So it would be really weird if he ended up anywhere besides in Atlanta.
Yeah, both teams, like both sides, Freddie and the Braves have both said there's mutual interest in wanting to come back together. So I think they'll just take time. That's all it is a lot of times in free agency. But we're bringing Acuna back. It's crazy to think we went on the whole run without him.
Without it.
We're gonna get Mike Soroka back at some point next year, hopefully. Then hopefully we can make some more key acquisitions and in free agency to just bolster the team. So I'm excited for it. Baseball season can't come soon enough.
I know, I agree. I love baseball. I mean, it's definitely, I mean, it's my favorite sport, as most people know, but so I definitely do miss it. It'll be exciting to see what teams do in the off season and kind of what happens going into next season. But yeah, I mean, as happy as I am for you about that and about them winning that championship, there's another sport that our teams are going to be going head to head in this weekend. Not really this weekend, technically, because Thursday night game is not a weekend game, but week 11 of the season already, which is crazy to think about that it's already week 11 of the NFL season, because I feel like the season just started. So that's kind of crazy for one, but the Patriots do in fact play your Falcons on Thursday Night Football this week. Which should be interesting. I mean, the Patriots are riding a win streak right now. They look really, really good. Things are starting to click for them. So it's really exciting to be a Patriots fan right now, because if this keeps up, those playoff hopes are getting higher and higher. And from your perspective, it's interesting to see kind of what's going on in your division right now. So I think there's kind of a lot going on and a lot going into this matchup in particular on Thursday night. But what are your thoughts kind of on just the Falcons season so far? I mean, is it kind of what you expected, or is it a little bit different from what you expected going into it?
I really had no idea what to expect going into it. We have a new coaching staff completely with Arthur Smith this year. And obviously, we started off pretty rough with a really deflating loss against the Eagles to start the season at home. That was not good. And then we followed up playing Tampa the next week and we didn't really look very competitive in that game either. But we eventually started to win some games. We won. We got our way up to 500 at one point at 4-4, and then last week we played the Cowboys and just we lost by 40 points
Yeah,
and couldn't score a touchdown.
pretty
And
bad.
obviously, those kind of games happen in the NFL, but it's still just like super deflating to watch that kind of game when like literally nothing goes right. So it's kind of tough for me to be optimistic, going into this game because, we have to turn around and play on a Thursday night. And we have quite a few injuries that are kind of up in the air right now with Cordell Patterson, especially. He kind of got tweaked up a little bit against the Cowboys, so that'll probably be a game time decision for him come Thursday night. And he's one of our biggest weapons on offense, so that'll be huge to lose him. Then Ridley's been out working on himself for the past couple of weeks, so we haven't had him. So we've really been relying heavily on Kyle Pitts and Cordell Patterson to win most of our games. And I'm still a Matt Ryan believer. I'm a Matt Ryan fan. I still think he's very effective, and he's been playing he against the Saints the other week. I thought it was one of the best games of his career. So we'll see what we can do. I mean, I'm curious to hear your thoughts going into this game. I'm not sure how much you follow the Falcons. I've watched the Patriots a couple times, and they'd certainly looked like they've been building a lot, especially with Mac Jones, maturing and getting comfortable in your offense.
Yeah, I think what you said about the Falcons and the injuries is a huge factor for
Mm-hmm.
one. And, I think coming into this season, that division in general, obviously other than Tampa, was just kind of unpredictable, because it was hard to really know what was going to happen with any of those teams this year, besides the Bucks, who, I mean, obviously just came off of a Super Bowl win and managed to re-sign everybody in the offseason. And coming into it, I said, yeah, they'll probably win their division again. They have a good chance of going to the Super Bowl again. But everybody else, other than that, it was kind of going to be interesting to see what was going to happen, because I mean, the Panthers going through changes as well. So I would say, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. That division as a whole, I think, was just kind of a big question mark to me. And then the Saints, who, smoked the Patriots, which was probably their worst game of the season so far, based on, how they've looked in other games. But even the Saints, too, I mean, they were going through a drastic change and, in the quarterback position, not having Drew Brees anymore. So I think that division as a whole, to me, was kind of up in the air. But, when you talk about Matt Ryan, I think, to me, I think he's a little bit I think he gets more heat than he kind of deserves. For that team, from what I've noticed, just from watching him play or just from the fans on Twitter who, just like to hate on him a lot. But at the end of the day, I really don't think that he's the problem. I think that he just gets more. And I mean, this is coming from somebody who's not a Falcons fan and is just like an outside observer. But I personally think that he is a lot better than people give him credit for. And I think that the circumstances maybe make it seem like he's not a lot of times, but I do think that he kind of doesn't get as much credit as he deserves, and people tend to hate on him a little bit too much. But I think that in terms of overall, when you look at kind of the big picture with him, and obviously he got a lot of hate for that Super Bowl, and ever since then, people haven't really fully believed in him, especially in big situations. But I think overall, I think that he's not really the issue. And I think he gets kind of, there's more people out there that are kind of hating on him unnecessarily, because I don't think that he's as bad as those types of people are making him out to be.
Yeah, it's always been like that. I mean,
Yeah.
when he was a young player, people were all there was always like, big debates. Is he the guy? Can he really be a long-term solution? And I think he's proved it over his career. And like you said about Falcons Twitter, if you want to start a fire, just bring up Matt Ryan and it's like lighting a match and throwing some gasoline. That's how you start a fire on Falcons Twitter, because there was a ton of debate going into this past offseason about should we draft a quarterback at fourth overall. And obviously we took Kyle Pitts, and he looks like a stud. So, but I still think Matt, he's 36 right now. I still think he has at least another 3 years where he can be really effective and play at a really high level. And he is, I'd say over his career, the Falcons have if he was playing on the Patriots, I think he would be putting up similar kind of wins as y'all have had in recent years for a long time with Tom. But I think he's super talented. I think he's super underappreciated in Atlanta, and I love Matt. I'm a huge Matt Ryan fan. So hopefully he can get a win against your Pats. I'm sure he's going to have a little bit of he's going to have a little motivation. I think this is the second time we've played y'all since that Super Bowl, and obviously I think the first time was up there in New England, and we did not play well against y'all at all. So hopefully he can. He's never beaten the Patriots either. I think it's the Patriots and the Steelers. Patriots and Steelers he's never beaten. So hopefully we can get that dub on Thursday.
But now he's facing a completely different Patriots team, and so it's a little bit different when you're not facing Tom Brady and the Patriots as opposed to when you're facing Brady and the Patriots. It's just a lot different. But I think, you bring up a good point about had he been on the Patriots, he could have, maybe would have had a lot of success there. And I think that's a really good point in general, because I feel like with the NFL, the system you're in can really be a factor. I mean, we've seen that happen before. I mean, there's quarterbacks who just really thrive in the system they're in. Like Josh Allen, for example, I feel like is perfect for the Bills system.
Yep.
And I feel like it just worked for him.
Yeah.
Obviously Brady, which we, with the Patriots, which obviously is like a given one. But then you look at players like, Carson Wentz, who maybe the Eagles weren't necessarily the right fit for him. And I think he has more opportunities with the Colts, and I just think it's a better fit for him. So I think in the NFL, I think the system you're in can be a factor in that. And also, obviously, the weapons that you have around you, too. Because if you don't have the weapons around you, how can you really do much of anything to succeed with your team? Unless you're well, Tom Brady is different, I think, because he was able to kind of just make people good. But in general, you don't really see quarterbacks like that. It's more that if they don't have people to throw the ball to, then what are they supposed to do?
Yeah, it's a team sport. You can't run, you can't throw the ball, then run and catch it too. You got to have people to catch it. But yeah, Big Ben with the Steelers is another one that comes to mind. Russell Wilson with the Seahawks, although they've been having their struggles recently. But yeah, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how the Patriots have progressed this year under Mac Jones.
Yeah, I think with the Patriots going into this season, there were a lot of question marks because it was like, okay, well, Cam was not the answer last year. obviously, and we saw that multiple times. He just was not the guy. I think, I don't think he has too much left in the tank in general, but even if he did, I don't think the Patriots were the best fit for him, because I think with his playing style, it just didn't really work with the offense that the Patriots like to run. And so, he wasn't the guy. So then, they draft a rookie quarterback, and this is the first real time that we've seen in a long time a rookie quarterback starting for the Patriots. So there were question marks surrounding that. And it's like, okay, well, how are they going to do this year? What should our expectations be realistically? And, Mac Jones was not a hot commodity when it came to the draft, because there were other quarterbacks that people would have rather seen them draft at the time. For examples being like Trey Lance was a name, Justin Fields, quarterbacks like that, got drafted earlier, that we knew probably would get drafted earlier, but people were holding out hope that maybe they would fall to the Patriots at their pick. So then they pick Mac Jones, and at first people I don't think were thrilled, because it seemed like one of those picks where it was just like, well, they're settling because they need a quarterback. But it turns out at the end of the day that I think he is the best quarterback for their system out of anybody in that rookie class. And I think, he's performing better than all the other rookies right now. And I think it's because of the system that he's in. And it's kind of a perfect situation for him to be in that's really going to allow him to grow. So I think that's been a huge factor in the Patriots this year, is that he really was quick in learning the Patriots system and the offense. And that was a huge factor. And you can tell every week, to me, that he's getting more and more comfortable as the weeks progress with just being out there and with the offense and with what this system entails. Because, as we all know, Belichick's system is hardcore. Not everybody can really cut it in that system. And I think he's doing a really good job of being a leader for this team on the field. And I think his decision making, which I've said this before to, some of my friends, and even on the show, I've said, I think his decision making on the field is one of the biggest things about him that I like, because he's not just standing there frozen, not knowing what to do with the football. He doesn't take a lot of sacks because he knows what to do with the football in a lot of different situations. And I think that's a huge thing. So I think that as of right now, where they're at, is really, really good compared to where they were a few games into the season, when it was looking like this season wasn't gonna pan out to anything. And now they're on this win streak, where they've won a few games in a row. So now everybody's on this high and they're really happy about it. And I think that that's going to bring a lot of confidence going forward, knowing that, he's really meshing well with this offense. So that's kind of what my perspective on that is, they went out and they got some weapons in the offseason, for one, because they didn't really have a lot of weapons for Cam as it was. And two, I think the quarterback situation, I can't really think of a better situation for Mac Jones to be in.
Yeah, I remember watching him at Alabama, and like you said, he's just always been really good at making his decisions with the football. And I remember watching the draft, and when the 49ers traded up, I remember there was a big debate about would they go with Trey Lance or Mac Jones, and everyone was kind of just like, if Mac Jones falls past number 4, it's like the Patriots are sitting there at 15. Like, there's probably a pretty good chance that he would probably go to them. And then it actually happened. And I've watched a couple of Patriots games this year, and he's definitely looked like he's been a real deal, especially in that system. He's kind of got like the Tom Brady mold a little bit to him. He's got the similar. He just looks like Tom Brady kind of. So I think he's definitely going to be a great. He's going to be a great. He's going to be a good guy. He's going to be a good answer for you guys for a long time, I think.
Yeah, I think his confidence really went up after that game against the Bucs, because even though they lost that game, he looked really, really good. And that was a game that everybody expected to be a blowout. On primetime, probably the most talked about game of the season beforehand was Brady's return to Foxborough and just kind of the stakes involved with that game. So I kind of look at that game against the Bucs as like a big confidence booster for not only Mac Jones, but the team in general. And I think that because I mean, that was such a close game, and it really came down to a missed field goal at the end of the game.
Yep.
Is what determined the outcome of that game. So they were right in it till the very end. And so games like that, or even just generally playing close games against good teams, like they had a really, really close game against the Cowboys at home. I was actually at that game. It went to overtime and they ended up losing in overtime, but the Cowboys are a good team. I mean, they're running away with their division. They're like a genuine contender. And I always said, if Dak Prescott can stay healthy, I think the Cowboys are legitimate. That offense is really good. And so I think it was really impressive that the Patriots were able to stay in the game with them too. And they haven't really had a genuinely bad game except for one game against the Saints. So I think that things are starting to move in a positive direction for them. I think the defense still needs work. I think that they are a little bit inconsistent. And they have trouble stopping the run a lot too, is something that I will say. The run defense is still a little bit lacking. But if they can fix those areas, I think they're a team that genuinely could make a run as long as people stay healthy.
Yeah, that's the thing with the Falcons is we can, like I said, we started off really slow. We kind of started to, figure things out with the new system and the offensive line started to block better for Matt, and we still are not. We've never had much of a running game threat this year, other than Patterson at times. But I think that's definitely going to be a key in our game on Thursday is how our offensive line can protect Matt, and if they can give Matt time to, make good decisions in the pocket, and if our receivers and tight ends can, get open, that's going to be a big key too. But I'm looking forward to the game. It's like I said, I'm sure we're going to come out better than we did against the Cowboys when we lost 43-3. Like they're going to have to be
I don't
motivated.
think that's going to happen 2 weeks
I hope not. But that's another thing is it's with the game being in Atlanta. We have not won a game in Atlanta yet this year. We have ever since we built the new stadium. We just haven't played that well there. It's really weird. Our only home win was our London game against the Jets, and we were the home team. So we still haven't won in Atlanta this year. So hopefully we can get over the hump. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? What do you think is going to be the keys for the Patriots to be successful in this game?
Yeah, I think there is a couple different factors. I think it's going to be a closer game for one than people think it's going to be. I think looking at these two teams right now and where the Patriots are at and how they've looked the last few weeks, I think people are like, oh, I'm not really worried about the Falcons because that seems like one of those teams that, people just kind of would brush off as like penciling in as a Patriots win. But I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it could be a really close game. And I think Matt Ryan, with his experience, I think obviously has like the quarterback advantage over Mac Jones in terms of, I think he'll make the right plays when he needs to. And I think the Patriots in general, I think, obviously Belichick has faced Matt Ryan and this Falcons team before. So I think he'll be able to prepare his defense at least. But I think that, the Patriots are going to have to figure out for one, making sure they're stopping the run game because that's what stumped them against a lot of teams. And even offenses that aren't run heavy have run the ball a lot against the Patriots, knowing that their run defense has been relatively weak this year. So that's going to be one of the biggest things for me. And I also think, from the offensive standpoint, I think they need to continue to let Mac Jones make plays because for a while at the beginning of the season, and even still sometimes now, they're a little conservative when it comes to Mac Jones and really letting him throw the ball. And I think it's, they won't let him make a lot of big plays and it's more, short passes and just not really letting him really haul the ball when he is capable of doing that and there's an open target. So I think that they need to kind of just keep loosening the reins on him. And I think if they can do that, then I think that the offense can really give Atlanta some trouble because I think Mac can be really unpredictable sometimes in a good way for what he does. Because when he does throw the ball deep, a lot of times he'll hit somebody. And that's another thing I'll say about him too is his accuracy. He's a pretty accurate quarterback. And, that's another key thing too, because Cam was not like that. So he's accurate and he can hit a lot of guys. So as long as people are getting open, I think that, I think the Falcons defense could struggle because, they've never seen Mac Jones before and it's been a while since they've seen this Patriots team in general. So I think that those are kind of the biggest things I'm looking at this game from a Patriots perspective, and seeing kind of on paper what they need to do.
Yeah, the Falcons have a habit of making pretty average quarterbacks look like Hall of Famers. So I think there's a good chance that Mac is going to be pretty successful. But we faced Zach Wilson earlier in the year, and we were able to get some pressure on him and pick him off a couple of times. But obviously, that's the Jets, and that's a completely different situation from where you guys are. But I mean, I was at the Washington game in Atlanta earlier this year against Taylor Heineke, and obviously nothing against. I mean, he's looked like a very. He's not bad by any means. He's had his moments of looking pretty good, but it looked like we had that game against Washington under control, and then they just came storming right back behind Heineke, and that's another thing that I could possibly see happening is the Falcons to jump out like to a lead like we almost always do, and then y'all getting a run at the end of the game and coming right back. But we'll see what happens. I will say the Falcons have the reputation of being chokers, and we have choked away a couple games this year, but we have gone back and kicked game-winning field goals in all of them. So I'm happy to say not quite as bad of chokers this year, but it's always a concern.
What they're going for. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying for sure. And I mean, one thing I will say about Washington, I mean, they just beat the Bucks this weekend too. That was surprising. I mean, I was looking through all the scores from some of the earlier games because I didn't really get to watch a lot of the games on Sunday this week. But I was looking at some of the scores afterwards, and I saw that Washington beat Tampa, and I was like, that's so weird. Like, who would have expected that? So they've been playing your division pretty tough.
Yeah, that's the thing about the NFL. You never know what's going to happen. Like I didn't see the 49ers demolishing the Rams last night. I didn't expect that. Yeah, but I don't know. Our division's in a weird spot because Tampa's lost 2 in a row. New Orleans has lost 2 in a row now. I mean, and we obviously we're only 2 games back, which is crazy to say. And we still play Tampa again. We still play New Orleans again. We lost to Carolina already this year, and we'll have to play them again. So it's really weird. I don't know what's going to happen in the NFC South. It's obviously on paper, like you said, Tampa looks like the team to be in all phases, but you never know about the NFL. And kind of like the Braves were this year. If you can get hot at the right time and start winning some games, you never know what can happen. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and that division is so up for grabs still. I mean, you look at those records, and it's like, I mean, Carolina and the Falcons are at the exact same spot. I'm pretty sure they're both 4-5 right now. And then, obviously Tampa and the Saints are a little above that, but really not by much. I mean, it takes Tom Brady having a couple bad games and other teams stringing together some wins, and all of a sudden you're looking at a division that literally could be anybody's race, which I still feel like it is. And like you said, you're right. That's the crazy thing about the NFL. Like going into the season, everybody would have picked the Bucs hands down to win that division. I think, like, no question. Like, yeah, like it should be Tampa. But now you're looking at it, and it's like, they've had a couple bad losses this year. So I don't think that Tampa is as unbeatable as people make it out to be. And it's just going to be one of those situations where I think down the stretch, it's going to be who's going to win those division matchups. Because I think when I look at teams like the Falcons or the Panthers, if they can string together wins against those division opponents down the stretch, then they have a chance. And that's like the craziest thing about it to me. And like you said about the Rams, I mean, for some reason, they always struggle against San Francisco. They always struggle against the 49ers for whatever reason, and I don't know what it is. But Stafford did not look good last night. And every team, like you said, has games like that. But, I mean, that just was super concerning. This is like, he did not look good. And so, obviously, I still think they turned that around. I mean, I picked the Rams to go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC going into the season. But if they cannot play like they did last night, there's a lot that they need to fix still. And so that's why I feel like the NFC is wide open still. It's a little bit tougher to me than the AFC right now in terms of picking teams that are legitimate contenders. Because I feel like in the AFC right now, there's more teams that you can point to and be like, okay, that team should make the playoffs. But you look at the other side of things, and with the NFC, it's like, well, yeah, it's wide open. I mean, obviously, like, the Packers are in there. Like, the Rams are still who I really like to go to the Super Bowl. And then obviously, like the Bucks and then the Cowboys and, the Saints are in there as a question mark too. Like, you really never know what's going to happen in this second half, I feel like.
Yeah, that's 2 bad games in a row too for Stafford and the Rams. They
Yeah,
lost to they got spanked by the Titans, the
I
week
know.
before. Speaking I think, like you said, the NFC is wide open. I kind of feel like the AFC is wide open too, and to me, I feel like the Titans right now, even though they lost Derrick Henry, they just look really good, and especially their defense is much improved, which I think will really help them, just to be able to shut down teams going forward. And I really do like the Titans to be serious contenders. But in your division, it's like you would think going into the season you'd pencil in the Bills as the heavy favorites to win the AFC East, but y'all are right there behind them too, and they've lost a couple of games, and so you
The
never know what's going to
Jaguars.
happen. Yeah,
That
that's
was
another that's,
crazy.
that's another game where it's like you don't expect it. It's crazy.
I cannot believe the Jaguars beat the Bills. I did not expect that at all. That was a game I penciled in as a Bills win 100%. I mean,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
would.
the crazy thing
Yeah,
about it.
I would have to bet. If I were to bet, like I would have put that as like my lock of the year for the Bills to beat the Jaguars. And then thank God I didn't actually bet it. But I mean,
That's
it's
why
crazy.
games like this Thursday night game are very important for the Patriots because they need to string together wins like that and take advantage because they're only a half a game behind the Bills right now. And so that's why it's, if they can keep pace with the Bills, they play the Falcons and then they play the Bills twice coming up within like a 3-week period of each other, I believe. So those games are going to be super important too. So we look at games like this week and it's like, the Patriots have to go in there like, yeah, I mean, they were on short rest, less preparation, but okay, so did Atlanta. They had a short preparation and less rest as well. So that's not really a valid argument either. It's like, you just have to go in there and play football like you would play football and just, try to string together wins like that because I never at all before the season started would have said the Patriots would come close to winning the division. I did say that I think they could get a wild card spot. I said, I'm feeling maybe like 10 to 11 wins in a wild card spot is kind of where I was at the beginning of the season to predict how the season would go. But I did not think they would be this close to Buffalo at this point. I thought that at this point in the season, Buffalo would be up by like maybe at least 2 games. And it's like they're not. And even 2 games isn't out of reach, but it kind of feels a little more like it is. Whereas a half a game is not at all out of reach. Like, it's just crazy to think about that it's like that. So that's why they need to continue to do what they're doing on offense. Because that's another thing I will say about the Patriots is they were making a lot of dumb turnovers. People weren't catching passes and they were just not in sync really to start the season. And I think, that was all stuff that was fixable. And I said, this is a team that's still, they have a lot of new players on offense this year and they're still trying to figure things out amongst each other. And Mac Jones is still trying to feel out everybody. But, I think the more now that they've really started to feel out this offense and get a sense of each other, I feel like this team could make a scary, serious run down the stretch if they look how they've looked the last few weeks. And I mean, even the Browns, I mean, that's a good team overall. Like that's a pretty good football team that has won some good games this year. And granted, they've had injuries as well, but I did not think that it was going to be that much of a blowout. I actually thought that was going to be a really close game between the Patriots and the Browns. And so I cannot believe that it was like 44-7. That was just crazy to me.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked to look at my app and see that score. It's definitely Browns is a weird team because, like you said, they've had weeks where they look really good and they can look like they can put it on people. Then they have weeks like last week where they get stomped. That's
Inconsistent.
yeah, that's a team where I feel like if they could get on a roll and start winning some games, they could definitely be dangerous going forward, especially when they get healthy especially with their running backs. But like you said, I think this week for the Falcons and Patriots is definitely it's a crucial game for both team seasons because obviously I feel like the Patriots had some higher expectations than the Falcons did coming in, and with the Falcons being right hovering around 500, if they could squeak this one out and then keep squeaking out more wins. And you never know, they could end up in a wild card spot. And like you said, you guys are just right there behind the Bills, so it's definitely a crucial game for both teams going into Thursday.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and do you think if the Falcons win that game on Thursday that they have a chance to make a run at their division?
I don't know. That's real. I mean, I feel like there's just too many holes on this team, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, where we just struggle to get stops a lot, and it feels like it's on Matt to just go out and win games, in which obviously he's won. We've won 4 so far, so we've won some games, but it's definitely going to be an uphill battle to win the division. I'd say, especially when you have teams like Tampa down there, and they're they've lost a couple in a row, but they'll get rolling again. I definitely think, just with the way the NFC is, I definitely think a wild card is definitely in play, and I think I could see the Falcons winning maybe 9, maybe 10 games max, which I think would get you a wild card. And I don't know. We've been really inconsistent at times. If we could just start playing some more consistent football, I definitely think there's a chance we could make a run for a wild card spot. But I would be absolutely shocked if we won our division this year at least.
Yeah, I mean and they're not a bad team by any means. I think that they're, better, a little bit better than kind of what their record says right now. I think that they have the ability to be better than what their record says. I think they just need to clean up some things. And like you said, the defense has been a major struggle for them this year. I mean, the Eagles plowed through that defense. And I said, if they don't fix this defense quickly, this team might not win more than 2 or 3 games this year, because that defense has not been good. And I think that's been, when I look at, I mean, obviously I haven't watched every Falcons game, but from the games I have watched and what I've seen, that to me seems to be the biggest glaring weakness right now is the defense. And I think that that's something that needs to be seriously addressed. And if they do somehow squeeze into a wild card spot, they're not going to get past the first round with this defense right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have a couple of cornerstones in Grady Jarrett, and we have a second-year cornerback in AJ Terrell, who's looked like an absolute stud this year. And I think he hasn't allowed, I can't remember the stat, but he's allowed like a ridiculously low amount of yards against him this year. Like, he's been really good. But other than that, I mean, we have a couple decent linebackers, and we have just a couple of placeholders at safety right now. So it's something we're definitely going to have to address in the draft, because we're really tight on our cap space. I don't know how in the heck have the Rams gone out and signed everybody and stayed under the cap? I don't understand that.
Oh, I know. That's the thing that's crazy to me. They just go and get all these players, and somehow they're still under the cap.
Yeah,
It's good talent too. It's not just these B-rated players. It's actually legitimately good talent.
Yeah, does the cap not apply to them?
Apparently not.
Anyway, but obviously, I think it's definitely going to be a test with this roster and our GM going forward and improving in the draft and any way he can in free agency. But I am optimistic. I think we got this hire right with the coaching staff and the GM. But we'll see what happens going forward. But I am definitely excited for this game Thursday night. If we could finally beat the Patriots in my lifetime, that would just be great.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like also if you guys do win that game, just getting to 500, I feel like is a momentum switch, because the Patriots were under 500 to start the season too. And that point when they got to 500 just seemed to be a huge momentum switch, because they've played really well ever since. And so I feel like hitting that mark of okay, we are now 5-5. We're at 500. We're not a bad football team. I feel like could really be a step in the right direction for you guys. And I mean, like we talked about before, this division is not a runaway right now. I kind of thought that it would be, because I really thought Tampa was going to just run away with that division, but they're not perfect, and they obviously have flaws, but I do think they'll turn it around, because Tom Brady, and it's the Bucs, and there's too much talent over there for them not to, I think. But also, I kind of agree with you. I think Atlanta is still a little bit underrated. And I think that if they can clean up some of these mistakes, I actually do think that they could be a wild card team. I don't think that they would make a serious run this year, but I think that they could squeeze into one of those wild card spots. And I think having that 17th game, I think you guys are one of those teams that could be huge for as well, because if you guys can pull together another win and having that extra win, that could be the difference maker down the stretch on whether they make the playoffs or not. So I think you guys are one of those teams that could seriously benefit from that extra game.
Yeah, I agree with you. We we're talking about getting to 500 and maybe that switching the building the momentum. Our win against the Saints got us to 500 at 4-4, and then we lost by 40 the next week. So that was not much. That was not much of a momentum builder,
The
apparently.
Cowboys are a really good team, though.
But maybe if we try it again and get to 500, maybe that'll get the momentum going. But
yeah,
I mean,
that was just so bad. I mean, like the Cowboys are a very good team. I mean, I think on both sides of the ball, their defense was obviously a huge issue last season, but they drastically improved that this year with their draft picks because they primarily focused on defense in the draft, and it's just made a difference for them. But I mean, that was just bad. Like that was just embarrassingly bad.
Yeah, I was driving, and so I was listening to the game, and thank God I didn't have to watch it.
Yeah,
I was glad I didn't have to watch that one.
Yeah, no, that was really bad. Yeah, but that is a good point. I mean, beating the Saints was actually probably a good win too, because that's not a bad team by any means. And it always feels extra good beating division rivals too. Especially teams that are ahead of you.
Yeah, it's the Saints. The Saints is the team it's the Saints and the Falcons. That's the big rival for both teams, and we always those are the two games that I'm like beating the Saints is just like it's the best feeling, and we were up big in that game, and really like we were up like 18 points I think in the fourth quarter, and they came storming back and took a 1 point lead with like a minute left, and then Matt on our first play of the next drive to go in the game, Matt hit Cordell Patterson down the sideline for like a 60-yard gain to like the 10-yard line, and we just go and kick the game-winning field goal. So that was definitely that was a rewarding win for sure, and especially against the Saints. But we'll see going forward. It's still we've got a bunch of games left. We're only
left, I think. Yeah, because it's 11. So yeah, like 8 or 9 games left.
Yeah, so there's a ton of season left. You never know what can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I could count it right now, but I think it's like 8 or 9 games.
Yeah.
For each team. So that's still that's why there's still a good amount of time left in the season. So anything can really happen. And injuries, obviously, you never really know who's going to get hurt, which obviously you hope that doesn't happen. But that can change a lot. If key players go down, that can really change a team's momentum. And I have it looks like a comment. Somebody commented on this and said, starting to think Matt Ryan is done for. So that's different from what your take was on that.
Well, I mean, Falcons they haven't been on national TV that much, but he's had obviously he's in a new system, so he's definitely I think he's still got, especially with the way quarterbacks are protected nowadays. He's not the most mobile quarterback, so he's not taking the biggest hits all the time. So as long as he has time to throw the ball, I still believe in him to be effective for the next 2-3 years. I didn't realize we were live. That's pretty cool.
No, but yeah. So I mean, I think it definitely is a matter of obviously staying healthy for one. And also just how much help he's getting, and I think that's a huge factor as well. And I think with when you look at teams like, the Rams was one that you mentioned before, and it's like, they are a team right now that's very much in win now mode. Like the Falcons aren't in that position. So like they have room, like they have like breathing room, you know what I mean? So for a team like them, it's like, okay, like, they have a couple more years where they can really like have a window more so per se. But when you look at teams like the Rams, it's like they put too much into it where it almost would be like a failure if they don't win. So that's why when you look at games like last night with them, that's very much concerning because they're a team that is really in Super Bowl or bust mode right now. So you like Rams fans, I don't know how they could look at that from last night and feel good about their team right now because they know that they've given up so many draft picks, which obviously they've never cared about draft picks because they always give up so many draft picks. But still, though, it's like they gave up so much for what they have on that roster right now. And so, they really are in like championship now mode. And you have to wonder what's going to happen with OBJ being there, because I still don't find it to be a coincidence that this happened his first week in a Rams uniform.
Yeah, I mean, that's I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with Odell, because him and Baker obviously they never got it going in the right direction. And obviously Odell looked like it for the first couple of years of his career playing with the Giants and Eli Manning. He looked like he looked like one of the best receivers in the league. So yeah, I enjoy watching him play. I hope he can get back to some resemblance of what he used to be. But like you said, with the Rams, like this is 2 weeks in a row that they've not looked good at all. And like you said, they're Super Bowl or bust for probably the next 2-3 years, where they really need to win one, or else it's considered a failure. So I don't know their schedule going forward. I don't know who they play next, but they obviously need to get it on the right track, or they're going to be they're going to have to, because they have Arizona in that division who's looked really good, and I'm sure the last thing that the Rams would want to do was to have to go be a wild card and have to go play on the road at like the Packers or at Dallas or at Bucks or something like that. So they definitely need to get it going.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals are really good. I mean, I originally, before the season started, picked the Rams to win that division, after they made all those moves. But now I'm thinking, like, Arizona actually looks like a better team right now.
Yeah, and it looks. I'm not sure what's going on with Kyler Murray. I don't know if he got hurt or if he had COVID or a concussion or something, but I think he's been out the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So that's obviously crucial for them to get him back. But they look like a really complete team too. So that's definitely going to be something to watch in the NFC West, because obviously, I mean, you have the 49ers who just won last night, and you never know if they could get on a run. Seattle, they still have Russell Wilson, but they've looked kind of, I don't know, they've looked kind of out of sorts this year. But it's definitely, I don't know. I just love football. I love the NFL, especially this time of year when there's so much going on. There's so many different teams that are just in it. It's awesome. I love football.
Yeah, me too. I know. And especially, it just gets so fun around this time, because it's like, okay, yeah, we've passed the halfway point. So now we're at the point where it's like really anything can happen down the stretch going forward. And it's just so fun. And then obviously nothing beats playoff football either, like it's just the best. So it really is a fun sport. And I love kind of all the surprises that come with it and teams that kind of come out of nowhere. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what teams do make the playoffs at the end, because I think there could be some surprises this year, maybe teams that make a run that nobody would have expected to make a run.
I do have a question for you. So speaking of like teams making a run, say your Patriots were to make a run to the Super Bowl, and say, I don't know, a team like the Bucks and Tom Brady were playing in the Super Bowl against y'all. What would be going through your brain at that point?
I'd be like, this is insane. Like, I feel like this is so like scripted right now for it to be like a Brady versus Belichick Super Bowl.
That's true.
Because even during the regular season, it felt like a playoff game playing the Bucks this year, with just how high those stakes were with Brady coming back to Foxborough.
Yeah.
But I would be like, I'd be obviously super nervous, because I'd be like, look, Brady, like, I love you. Like, I want to see you succeed, but not when you're playing the Patriots. And like, I hope you get smoked by 40 against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And I do think with how close that game was in the regular season and how well coached the Patriots looked against the Bucks and how prepared they would be going into that game, I think that would be an incredible Super Bowl. I honestly think that would be like a hell of a game, because I think, obviously you're dealing with Brady, who was with the Patriots for so long, but then you're dealing with Belichick, who obviously knows Brady better than any other coach knows Brady. So I think it would be a similar game to what we saw in the regular season, where it's a close game that comes down to the wire. But I would be my emotions would be like through the roof, because I'd be like, obviously I'd be rooting for the Patriots because they're my team. But I'd be like, this is so scary, because like I know how Brady is in the postseason. So me from the other side, having to play against him in a postseason game does not sound fun to me at all, because obviously, like, I know all too well what Brady does in the postseason.
Yeah, that was fascinating to me, following people, following Boston people on Twitter like you, and just seeing tweets from Boston fans. And that game y'all played against him, and just like the roller coaster of emotions you guys were on. It was, and that was honestly, like, leading up to that game, that was just like, it was crazy. That was like I think that probably had to have been the most highly anticipated regular season NFL game of all time.
I really think that it might have been, and because so many people were talking about it, like you don't even have to be a fan of either of those teams to want to tune into that game because it's like
Oh
who
yeah,
wouldn't want to watch that reunion of like Brady coming back to Foxborough after all this time? It was just like who wouldn't want to see that happen? Like I feel like any football fan, regardless of who your team was excited for the anticipation of that game.
yeah. It was definitely pretty cool to watch for sure. But
It would be cool if it happens again in the Super Bowl. I feel like that would just be so like appropriate. I feel like that would just be so like, that would be Belichick's time to really like show that he can win a Super Bowl without Brady. And then Brady's already done it without Belichick. So like it would just be a really interesting scene, I think, if that were the Super Bowl. I feel like the ratings would be incredibly high.
yeah, that would be like storybook ending, or not even an ending. That'd just be like storybook, you know?
It really would. I would be a wreck though. My emotions would be so like through the roof because I'd be like, no, we have to beat Brady. Like this is like our chance. Like we have to beat the guy that like is who he is because of the Patriots. Like come on, like we have to beat him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would definitely be something else. All right, so do you have a final score prediction for Thursday?
Oh gosh, that's hard. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I'm thinking more of like maybe like a. I'm going to say maybe like a 27 to 34, like a one
I think,
score game type thing.
yeah, if the Falcons win it, I think it would probably have to be like a field goal at the end, like we've done for almost all of our wins this year.
Yeah,
Like
like
by
then it
what?
comes down to like them making a field goal to win the game.
Yep, like the 1 or 2 point victory if we were to have a chance. So it's
Okay.
definitely going to be a fun game to watch. I'm going to be very nervous for it because I always am, but especially I think this is our only primetime game this year, so I definitely don't want us to go on primetime and suck. That would not be fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, that would not be fun at all. Yeah, I think the
yeah,
Patriots have another one against the Bills on Monday Night Football. That's actually going to be pretty good.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but yeah, no, I know. I think it'll be a fun game though. I think it's the stakes are really high at this point for both of these teams, and a win would really, really benefit either of these teams right now. So I think it's gonna be fun to watch. It's gonna be cool to see kind of what happens and if it's more of an offensive game, which I think it is gonna be. So I think that's gonna be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, watch it be like a super defensive game after us talking
I
about
know,
it
right?
like this.
It's gonna be like one of those games that ends like 10-3 or something like that.
Oh yeah, gosh, I hope not. Those,
That would be
um,
crazy. I'd be like, wow,
Falcons
my
usually,
score prediction was like way off.
yeah, the Falcons usually don't win those games either. So hopefully, I just hope we look better than last week. I hope we can score more than 3 points. That would be great. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, just aim for higher than what you did last week, and then everything will be
Higher,
well.
higher than 3 points. That'll be great.
Yeah, I think you will, though. I really think you will. I mean, the Patriots defense is definitely inconsistent. So I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a close game. It'll be fun to kind of see what happens. But I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed you being on the show. I think this was a fantastic conversation. Everybody who tunes in every week, I really, really appreciate it. I know I said this at the beginning, but just always want to reiterate that. Really appreciate everyone's constant support of the show. I hope that you all have a great rest of your week. And well, obviously go Patriots. I have to end on that note for that purpose. But no, have a great week, everyone, and I'll talk to you all next time.
Thanks for having me, Gabby. Rise up.